IVC, Dale Gatefold 33, back to do a vinyl finds video. So I've got, I believe I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 albums to show. But before I start, I thought I'd show a book. So I did a 6-track sampler on Fairport Convention for Richard McCook, and Shannon did a video that I watched earlier about the Battle of Evermore by Led Zeppelin and the duet between Sandy Denny and Robert Plant. So I thought I would show this book, which I heartily recommend as a biography of Sandy Denny by Mick Houghton. I've always kept a unicorn. I think it's a really balanced and interesting insight into her life, her short life. So as I say, I recommend that book. Right, on with the records. So first one I won't say too much about. This was the only gap in my Matthew Holsall collection. I've shown Matthew Holsall's jazz records. He does lovely, soulful, really delicate and beautiful jazz. He's a trumpeter from Manchester, and so this one, Fletcher Moss Park, which I understand is a park in Manchester, was the only one missing from my collection, so I've added that and enjoyed it. It's more of the same. If I put that there. This next one is I got from Be With Records, which I do recommend. Be With Records, they've been reissuing a lot of the KPM library records, and amongst other things, and a lot of soul. Some of it's a bit too soul disco for my taste, but I think they do a lot of interesting stuff. And this is an issue of I think it's an album only from last year by a couple of Japanese artists. I will read the hype from their site. And yeah, it's a double album. I think it was originally released last year on CD, and they put it out on vinyl at Be With Records. And it's instrumental, quite a mellow. So I imagine it's a kind of, if you like, it's a come down album from a night of raving on the Balearic Islands in the summer. It is that kind of, so I recommend. It's got some interesting instrumentation at points. Some points I think you got steel drums and all sorts going on, but yeah, it's quite it's a good mellow spring summer album to listen to. So I enjoyed that. So the artists are so what does it say? Self-titled long player from the new Japanese production unit of DJ and producer Masanori Ikeda, and solo artist, session musician and crew Manyon keyboard player, I don't know what one of those is, Takumi Kaneko. So there's a little bit about it for you from the Be With Records site. Next one, still keeping the instrumental going. So this is the most recent issue by Tangerine Dream. So obviously the new incarnation of Tangerine Dream now that Edgar Froese is no longer with us. So it's called Recurring Dreams, and on this album, it's another double album. They if you like, reimagine or do a modern re-recording of some classic Tangerine Dream tracks. So you've got Sequence C on here, you've got Phaedra, you've got Stratosphere, amongst others. So yeah, it's good. Enjoyed it. Haven't fully absorbed it, but I want to show it. I've got a lot of Tangerine Dream at the moment. I'm particularly on CD. I've got tons to absorb, and this is probably pretty much more my winter listening. I think I've concluded on the headphones commuting to work, if I ever commute to London again in my career. I've only got 7-8 years till I retire, so I'm not rushing to commute back into London, if I'm honest. So yeah, so Tangerine Dream. Changing it now to folk. You could say psych folk. I think it's kind of on the edge of psych folk or acid folk. So this is an anniversary. Let me just check how years anniversary is. Bear with me. Put that down. 2006. So yeah, 2006. This album came out the 18th day of May. Self-titled album, the 18th day of May. They were a folk collective that have subsequently kind of gone on to do different things. I think the Left Outsides is another band that I've got some music from, and Alison. I've got it on 10-inch. Other artists. So they've subsequently broken up, but they've gone on to do other things in the kind of folk, country folk, folk rock genre. This is, as I say, it's badged in some places as psych folk. I think it's folk rock, and it's really, it's almost like if Fairport Convention and Sandy Denny had done a fourth album immediately after their kind of 1969 albums, it might have sounded a bit like this. I mean, the singer doesn't sound like Sandy Denny, but you know exactly. But it's got that feel to it. So I think it's just a classic English folk rock album, but from 2006. And this is a reissue in 2020, where it's a double album, another double album, where they have done the original album plus a number of tracks that they recorded for a follow-up album that never got released. So hence you've got the double album with some extra tracks, and the second album does play really well as an album. It's some sort of strong material. It's not kind of filler. So I really enjoyed this. So they feature in another book highlight. So I've had this book, Seasons They Change by Jeanette Leach. When did it come out? I'm sorry. 2010. So I've had it for 10 years, and I must admit I've never read it cover to cover, but I do dip into it. So this is about the evolution of acid, where it says that the story of acid and psychedelic folk. It's a really good read. But it features espers that I've shown before, and the 18th day of May are in there, but so are the kind of origins of acid folk, incredible string bands, and it's got pictures at the beginning of all. It's got the kind of the key artists, if you like, right from Shirley and Dolly Collins, who probably aren't acid folk, but they're kind of very, very authentic, sort of reinventing of historic folk. Through you've got Tim Buckley, Vashti Bunyan, Bonnie Dobson. Sorry, I'm not doing a very good job of showcasing this. You've got Swaddling Song, lots of kind of through to more modern, as I said, more modern folk. So Sharon Krause, who's and even Devendra Banhart, and Joanna Newsom, who's a modern, and I mentioned espers. There's espers there. So yeah, so it's a good book to kind of dig into. I have to say, at some point I need to sit down and read it cover to cover, but I haven't as yet. So that's 18th day of May. And the final record I'm going to show today is just come out the last week or so, is this one. So it's the latest Bob Stanley, Pete Wiggs compilation album called Occasional Rain, which is a companion piece to an album I've already shown, English Weather. And this sort of features, again, like English Weather, tracks from the turn of the sort of 1969 into 1970, so early 1970-71 tracks that typify the UK at that point in time. And I can say it absolutely nails it, because I've listened to this once through. It comes on coloured vinyl, I won't show you, or transparent vinyl. And it's supposed to, I'll quote Bob Stanley, occasional rain puts the bigger names like Traffic and the lesser knowns like Mandy Moore, Shape of Rain, Andrew Lee, Side by Side. Like its predecessor, it attempts to evoke the turn of the new decade, the feel of a wet Saturday afternoon, at the dawn of the 70s, spent flicking through the racks, wondering whether to buy the new Tull album. And it's talking about the political and social changes at that time, and it did evoke this because I played it and I thought, actually, I don't want to listen to this at this point in time. What we've gone through in the last few months. It's now June. We're getting into summer. This absolutely made me feel like a wet Saturday in October, and so I thought, yeah, it's a really good album, but I'm gonna put it away until October and listen to it then, when it will kind of hit the mark. So it must obviously do its job, because that's what it made me feel like, which I didn't want to feel like at the moment, if that makes sense. So that was a kind of quick, well, not that quick, insight into 5 records that I've bought recently, and I thought I'd just share with you. Thanks, bye.